Hi everybody. Boy, I have been walking for about an hour and a half on straight incline. I was dripping with sweat. I stopped for a moment so that you didn't have to see me all sweaty. And I will be picking up because it's going straight up. And look at this. There have been horses going by with no human being around. It's been a little super. Look at the little guy. Isn't he cute? Anyway, before I get into the topic, I wanted to just give a shout out that in Pollo, I had one of the best cups of hot chocolate I think I have had in ages, if at all. It reminded me of the milk in the monastery when we would milk the cows. And I didn't even ask for hot chocolate. In my broken Spanish, I wanted espresso with just a little bit of milk and a little bit of chocolate in it. I'm going to wait to eat till I get to my destination. I ate a lot yesterday and thought, my body just wants liquids right now. But I didn't succeed in getting what I wanted to get. But it was happy fault, because they brought me espresso and then they brought me a huge cup of steamed frothed milk with chocolate powder that you put in yourself. And it was absolutely delicious. It like each time I was sip it was so frothy and so creamy, and the flavor was so full. It could have been a commercial, because I would imagine I probably had froth all on my top lip. So it was been a lovely, lovely, grace-filled morning that way, and I have met a ton of pilgrims. I'm on the final leg, and so there are so many pilgrims. Anyway, today's topic, the truth will set you free. The topic's actually about truth. And I was reflecting on this yesterday. One of the audiobooks I'm listening to, Tantra Illuminated by Christopher Harish Wallace, speaks so eloquently of truth. And it always gets me thinking about the beautiful verses in the Bible that are like, the truth will set you free and love casts out fear. And I was reflecting on truth and how truth can define something without creating division. We introduce the division. It's this, not that. And that is where we probably are, where we are in our own path, where we're capable of either seeing the underlying essential nature and having definitions and individuality versus seeing specific divides. I hope that makes a little sense. But I get thinking about truth quite a bit, because I know over time what I would call true has something that stays the same and many aspects that continue to change and continue to change. And so I was wondering, if you had to define truth, what would it be? How would you give a definition to somebody else about truth? I was thinking about it, and for me, truth is a grasping or an understanding of some aspect or some part of the nature of reality. And that understanding creates a freedom within the self. It creates an illumination and inspiration. It gives light to our steps. And so it's some grasping of reality, of an experience of reality. Sometimes truth, I think, is expressed in words, but words even fall short of what they're pointing to. But sometimes they can be quite eloquent, especially in poetry. But it has to do, I think, with reality. And so, if that's so, if truth has to do with something more dynamic than just belief, if it has to do with some expression or experience of reality, and we are simply in this much reality and coming to understand reality more and more, then necessarily what we call true is going to go through an evolutionary process. I mean, you can look at humanity and see what was held as true 5,000 years ago, and see the parts that are still held universally as true, and see the other parts that aren't held as true anymore. And I think that's not a bad thing. It's part of the nature of revelation. In fact, even though I lean into and find within myself that reality is by its essence non-dual, I think there is a place for a dualism consciousness along the path, because to be capable to have a defining point into which we surrender into a direct experience, we can thus experience truth stretching us into a new understanding. Understanding by way of grasping reality, by way of perceiving, by way of becoming intimate with reality in all its shades and all its dimensions. And if we're faithful to the path of truth, we will find that that's where our obedience lay. See, that's a scary word for Westerners, obedience. I love that word because to obey is to listen. Obedere in Latin means to listen. So to obey is to listen to spirit and to be aligned. In Tantra Illuminated, he mentions that one of the most important or a very important practice, he doesn't say most important, is to cultivate thought patterns that are aligned with the nature of reality. And we can choose at any time to move away from the thought patterns that are not aligned into cultivating. So I was thinking about the scripture passage when Jesus is being condemned to be crucified, and he comes before Pontius Pilate. And Pontius it's an interesting, I don't take scripture literally, my experience of God in scripture, all scripture, but the Bible here, is not a literal base, it is a symbolic base. And symbolic doesn't mean figurative or disposable. It is, to me, more true, more penetrating, more comprehensive, if you will, multifaceted. And so Jesus comes before Pilate, and of course the crowds are saying, he says he's king of the Jews. And Pontius Pilate, in the privacy, right, the privacy with Jesus, says, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus says, it's you that say that. If I were a king, people would be fighting for me to not be crucified. And Jesus says, the reason I was born is to testify to the truth. And everyone on the side of truth listens to me. So Jesus says something quite amazing. He gives a compelling witness that he himself embodies the truth, embodies it. And that when people come into contact with him, if they're listening, then it sets them free. And I believe that was meant to get us into touch with the fact that if we listen, then we can find that truth is one of the fruits and one of the ways we align into the nature of reality. So that's a pretty dramatic statement. What if we all, close to our death, could say with all confidence, I was born to testify to the truth. You were born to testify to the truth. So being capable of actually saying that I was born to testify to the truth is a self-possession and a self-knowing that's filled with liberation. Well, what's interesting, and again, since I take the Bible much more symbolically, Pontius Pilate says, what is truth? What is truth? And Jesus has already said it. He says, I'm embodying it. So when there is the presence of alignment with the nature of reality, we have an experience of truth. How flexible are you with what you say is true and what you may find as not true? And do you find that you can evolve with truth? Things that I said were 100% true 20 years ago, I no longer profess as true. But the essence of what was underlying that has remained the same. So part of our call then is to cultivate thought patterns. Something we can do. We can do many things to do this. Cultivate thought patterns that are in alignment with the nature of reality. And then we'll be able to say with Jesus, I was born to testify to the truth. Why? Because our religion will be what? Kindness, like the Dalai Lama says. Our religion will be compassion. Our religion will be the unifying expression of reality and the ability to hold all the different perspectives, all the different layers of dualism, non-dualism, and planes of consciousness. We can hold it all as having aspects of the truth, as having a piece of the truth, because we can hold the whole. And if we're just learning what reality is, what the nature of reality is, we're just learning what it means to be in truth. So, the truth will set us free. I have always found that in my life, especially in the really big moments. There has usually been an inner clarity in the really big moments in my life. And I have known that it is the truth that I have to follow in that moment. That to me is one of the greatest gifts I could imagine, because big moments, big decisions can be difficult. And to be so caring about freedom and truth that we are aligned to hear, obedire, to listen, to hear what's resonating with the truth right here and right now, gets us not only in a stable place, but creates us into a dynamic flow in the nature of reality. I know this one's a little bit more philosophical, but there's always a place. When we walk for a long time, sometimes we want to wax on what's philosophical with reality and truth and all the rest. So I say with Pontius Pilate, what is truth to you? Have a great day, my friends. May you rest in what sets you free.